The man who played music in the air, Leon Theremin, the inventor who became a spy. Imagine attending a concert where the musician never touches the instrument. No keys, no strings, no drumsticks. Instead, the performer stands before a small wooden box with two metal antennas and waves both hands through empty air. As the audience watches in amazement, haunting, beautiful music seems to emerge from nowhere. To many people in the 1920s, it looked like magic. But it was not magic. It was science. And the man behind it was Leon Theremin, a brilliant Russian physicist, inventor, and, as history later revealed, a spy. His life was stranger than fiction. It was a story of music, science, mystery, disappearance, imprisonment, and international espionage. Few inventors have left behind a legacy as extraordinary as his. A curious boy who loved science. Leon Theremin was born Lev Sergeyevich Termin in St. Petersburg, Russia, in 1896. From a young age, he was fascinated by electricity, radio waves, and the invisible forces of nature. While other children played games, young Lev built scientific equipment in a home laboratory. By the time he was 17, he had created his own laboratory for experiments involving high-frequency circuits, optics, and magnetic fields. He was also a talented cellist, equally at home in the worlds of science and music. That unusual combination would eventually change the history of music. World War I and the Russian Revolution transformed Russia, and Theremin found himself working as a radio engineer. After the war, he joined a research institute, where scientists were studying electrical measurements and radio technology. One day, while testing a device designed to measure the properties of gases, he noticed something unexpected. The pitch of a sound changed whenever his hand moved near the apparatus. Most researchers might have ignored the effect. Theremin heard music hiding inside the experiment. Music from thin air. In 1920, Leon Theremin unveiled one of the world's first electronic musical instruments. The instrument itself was surprisingly simple in appearance. A small wooden cabinet with two metal antennas. One antenna stood upright like a thin rod and controlled pitch, while a loop-shaped antenna extended from the side and controlled volume. By moving their hands through the invisible electromagnetic fields surrounding these antennas, performers could shape notes without ever touching the instrument. The instrument would later bear his name, the theremin. Unlike a piano or violin, the theremin required no physical contact. The player's right hand typically controlled pitch, while the left controlled volume. Tiny movements altered electromagnetic fields and changed the sound. The result was unlike anything people had ever heard. The notes floated and glided through the air like a human voice, a violin, and a distant ghostly choir all at once. Listeners were captivated by its strange beauty. When Theremin demonstrated the instrument in Europe during the 1920s, concert halls filled with curious audiences. Many could hardly believe their eyes. They watched a man conducting invisible music in empty space. Newspapers celebrated the invention as a glimpse of the future. Even Vladimir Lenin took a personal interest in the instrument. According to Theremin's later recollections, Lenin not only listened to it, but also tried playing it himself. To the inventor's surprise, Lenin displayed a surprisingly good musical ear and managed to perform a simple melody. Impressed, he encouraged Theremin to demonstrate the instrument throughout Europe as a showcase of Soviet scientific achievement. For a brief moment, Leon Theremin became one of the most celebrated inventors in the world. America falls in love with the theremin. In 1927, Theremin arrived in the United States. America was fascinated by innovation, and the theremin fit perfectly into the spirit of the age. Theremin performed with major orchestras, appeared at prestigious venues, and attracted attention from scientists, musicians, and journalists. Among those fascinated by his work was Albert Einstein. The famous physicist attended demonstrations and discussed science and music with Theremin. Einstein, who loved the violin, was intrigued by an instrument that transformed invisible electrical fields into music. Another admirer was a young violin prodigy named Clara Rockmore. Rockmore would become the greatest theremin virtuoso in history. While many viewed the instrument as little more than a scientific curiosity, she proved it could perform serious classical music with remarkable precision and emotional depth. Theremin and Rockmore developed a close friendship. According to several accounts, he proposed marriage to her more than once. She declined, eventually marrying attorney Robert Rockmore. But she remained his most important musical collaborator, and helped establish the theremin as a legitimate concert instrument. Meanwhile, Theremin continued inventing. He experimented with electronic instruments, explored early television technology, and created devices that seemed decades ahead of their time. He dreamed of a future in which electronics and music would become inseparable. For a while, that future seemed within reach. Then he vanished. The disappearance. In 1938, Leon Theremin suddenly disappeared from New York. Friends were shocked. Rumors spread rapidly. Some believed Soviet agents had kidnapped him and forced him back to Russia. Others insisted he had returned voluntarily. Modern historians generally see a more complicated picture. Theremin was facing serious financial and tax difficulties in the United States. At the same time, war clouds were gathering over Europe. Soviet authorities almost certainly encouraged, and perhaps pressured, his return. But the decision appears to have grown from a mixture of personal desperation and political reality. Whatever the truth, one fact was undeniable. Leon Theremin disappeared from public view. For decades, nobody knew what had happened to him. Many assumed he was dead. The reality was far more dramatic. Prisoner of Stalin. Shortly after returning to the Soviet Union, Theremin became a victim of Joseph Stalin's political purges. He was arrested and imprisoned. The inventor, who had once performed before royalty, scientists, and international audiences, found himself trapped within the brutal Soviet prison system. He spent time in labor camps before being transferred to a secret research facility known as a Sharashka, a prison laboratory where scientists and engineers worked under government supervision. Yet even imprisonment could not suppress his creativity. Instead of designing musical instruments, he was now ordered to develop technologies for national security and intelligence. The next chapter of his life would transform him from inventor to spy. From inventor to spy. Inside the secret laboratories, Theremin developed surveillance technologies for the Soviet government. His most famous creation became known as the Thing. The story sounds almost unbelievable. In 1945, Soviet schoolchildren presented the United States ambassador in Moscow with a beautifully carved wooden replica of the Great Seal of the United States. The gift was offered as a symbol of friendship between wartime allies. The ambassador proudly hung it in his office. What nobody knew was that a secret listening device was hidden inside. Unlike ordinary bugs, it contained no batteries, no active electronic circuitry, and nothing that security agents could easily detect. It was essentially a passive cavity resonator concealed within the wooden carving. Soviet operators could illuminate the device with a radio signal transmitted from outside the embassy. The hidden resonator would then reflect conversations back to a receiver. Because it had no power source to wear out and emitted nothing on its own, it remained undetected for 7 years. Only in 1952 was the secret finally uncovered. The inventor of this extraordinary espionage device was Leon Theremin. The same man who had once enchanted audiences with music from the air had become one of the Soviet Union's most valuable intelligence innovators. It was one of the strangest transformations of the 20th century. A musician-inventor who helped create electronic music, and, at the same time, developed some of the Cold War's most sophisticated surveillance technology. Few lives bridged the worlds of art and espionage so completely. The instrument that refused to die. While Theremin disappeared behind the Iron Curtain, his invention continued its own remarkable journey. Hollywood discovered the theremin's eerie voice. Its haunting sound became associated with dreams, mysteries, psychological tension, and visitors from outer space. Films such as Alfred Hitchcock's Spellbound used the instrument to create an atmosphere unlike anything audiences had heard before. Soon, the theremin became the soundtrack of the unknown. Ironically, many people believe the instrument was used in the Beach Boys' hit song Good Vibrations. The famous sound was actually produced by an electro-theremin, also known as a tannerin, which used a mechanical slider rather than free-moving hands in an electromagnetic field. The device was designed to imitate the theremin's singing tone, while being much easier to play accurately in a recording studio. Even so, the theremin's influence on popular music remained enormous. Its greatest impact may have been on a young electronics enthusiast named Robert Moog. During the 1950s, while still a student, Moog began building and selling theremin kits. Through that experience he learned the principles of electronic sound generation and control. Those lessons eventually led him to create the Moog synthesizer. In a very real sense, much of modern electronic music, from progressive rock to film scores, from synthesizer pop to electronic dance music, can trace part of its ancestry back to the theremin. The instrument that seemed like a novelty in 1920 helped open the door to the musical future. A return from the shadows. For decades, the outside world heard almost nothing about Leon Theremin. Then, during the final years of the Soviet Union, the forgotten inventor began to reappear. Musicians and historians were astonished to discover that he was still alive. The man many had assumed dead was now an elderly scientist, living quietly in Moscow. When he finally visited the West again, he was welcomed as a pioneer. Young musicians viewed him as a legend. Electronic music enthusiasts treated him as a founding father of their art form. He had witnessed revolutions, world wars, imprisonment, scientific breakthroughs, and the Cold War. Very few people in history had experienced so much. Leon Theremin died in 1993 at the age of 97. The invisible legacy. Today, the theremin remains one of the most unusual instruments ever created. Learning to play it is notoriously difficult. Since there are no keys, strings, or frets, performers must locate every note in empty space using nothing but precise hand movements and a highly trained ear. Yet in skilled hands, the instrument can sing with astonishing beauty. Modern audiences continue to be fascinated by its mysterious voice. But perhaps the greatest fascination lies not in the instrument itself, but in the life of the man who invented it. Leon Theremin stood at the crossroads of science, art, and politics. He created one of the first electronic musical instruments in history. He helped lay the foundations for modern synthesizers. He disappeared without explanation. He survived prison camps. He designed one of the most ingenious spying devices of the Cold War. And through it all, he never stopped inventing. The story of Leon Theremin reminds us that history is often stranger than fiction. Sometimes the same hands that create beautiful music can also shape the secret machinery of nations. In the end, perhaps that is why his story continues to captivate us. The inventor who taught the world how to play music without touching an instrument also revealed the power of invisible forces, whether radio waves, music, or political power, to change the course of human history.
It's time to study new words in context. 1. Espionage. Definition: the activity of secretly gathering information about another country, group, or person. Example: the spy was arrested for espionage after stealing government secrets. 2. Legacy. Definition: something important that a person leaves behind and is remembered for after they die. Example: her legacy includes many books that people still enjoy today. 3. Optic. Definition: related to sight, eyes, or the way we see things. Example: scientists studied optic signals sent from the eye to the brain. 4. Apparatus. Definition: a piece of equipment or a set of tools used for a special purpose. Example: The scientist used a small apparatus to conduct the experiment. 5. Prestigious. Definition: respected and admired because it is important or successful. Example: she received an award from a prestigious university. 6. Venue. Definition: a place where an event, meeting, concert, or activity happens. Example: the concert was held at a large outdoor venue. 7. Prodigy. Definition: a young person with an unusual talent or ability. Example: the piano prodigy could play difficult music at the age of 6. 8. Virtuoso. Definition: a person who is extremely skilled at playing a musical instrument or performing an art. Example: the violin virtuoso amazed the audience with her performance. 9. Purge. Definition: the removal of people from a group, organization, or government, often by force. Example: many officials lost their jobs during the political purge. 10. Bug. Definition: a hidden device used to secretly listen to conversations. Example: investigators discovered a bug hidden inside the office wall. 11. A passive cavity resonator. Definition: a device that reflects radio signals and does not need its own power source to work. Example: the secret listening device worked as a passive cavity resonator and remained hidden for years. 12. Enchanted. Definition: filled with great delight, wonder, or pleasure. Example: the children were enchanted by the magician's performance. 13. Novelty. Definition: something new, unusual, or different that attracts attention. Example: at first, people saw the instrument as a novelty rather than a serious musical tool. 14. Notoriously. Definition: known by many people for something bad, difficult, or unpleasant. Example: the mountain trail is notoriously difficult to climb. 15. Ingenious. Definition: very clever and creative in solving problems or making things. Example: the inventor created an ingenious device that nobody had seen before.
Comprehension questions. 1. Who was Leon Theremin? Answer: Leon Theremin was a Russian physicist, inventor, and musician who invented the theremin, one of the world's first electronic musical instruments. 2. What made the theremin different from other musical instruments? Answer: the theremin could be played without touching it. Players moved their hands through electromagnetic fields to control the sound. 3. How did Theremin discover the idea for the theremin? Answer: he noticed that the pitch of a sound changed when his hand moved near an electrical device he was testing. 4. What do the two antennas on a theremin control? Answer: one antenna controls pitch, high or low notes, and the other controls volume, loudness. 5. Why were audiences amazed when they first saw the theremin? Answer: they saw music being created without the performer touching the instrument, which seemed almost magical. 6. What role did Vladimir Lenin play in the story of the theremin? Answer: Lenin took an interest in the instrument, tried playing it himself, and encouraged theremin to demonstrate it across Europe. 7. Who was Clara Rockmore? Answer: Clara Rockmore was a talented musician who became the greatest theremin performer and helped prove that the instrument could be used for serious music. 8. Why did Leon Theremin leave the United States? Answer: historians believe he returned because of financial difficulties, concerns about war, and pressure from Soviet authorities. 9. What happened to Theremin after he returned to the Soviet Union? Answer: he was arrested during Stalin's political purges and sent to prison before being moved to a secret research laboratory. 10. What was the thing? Answer: the thing was a secret listening device hidden inside a wooden carving of the Great Seal of the United States. 11. Why was the thing difficult to detect? Answer: it had no batteries, no active electronics, and no power source, so it did not behave like ordinary listening devices. 12. How long did the thing remain hidden? Answer: it remained undiscovered for 7 years before being found in 1952. 13. How did the theremin influence modern music? Answer: it inspired later electronic instruments and helped pave the way for the development of synthesizers. 14. What connection did Robert Moog have with the theremin? Answer: Robert Moog built theremin kits as a young man, and the knowledge he gained helped him create the famous Moog synthesizer. 15. Why is Leon Theremin's life often described as extraordinary? Answer: he was an inventor, musician, scientist, prisoner, and spy whose work influenced both electronic music and Cold War espionage. 16. What lesson does Leon Theremin's story teach us? Answer: his story shows that creativity, science, and innovation can have unexpected effects on history and society. 17. Why is the theremin still admired today? Answer: it remains unique because it is played without touch, produces a distinctive sound, and represents an important step in the history of electronic music. 18. What is meant by the article's title, "The Man Who Played Music in the Air"? Answer: the title refers to Theremin's invention of an instrument that creates music through hand movements in the air rather than physical contact.